know that there are tools in place so that you can actually track when someone's on a website, and let's say you have an application or a lead card, which is the instance for the company on that. We can track it to that point, but we also have a toll-free phone number that we'd much rather people call than rather just play phone tag with us with a lead card on the internet. Is there any type of third party that companies like yourselves are actually working with to be able to track phone calls back to an ROI?
What we've done is we actually use a voice XML platform. We started experimenting with the third parties as a complete separate entity, but we realized that we really wanted it more integrated with our technology in our specific case. So what we've built, and it's actually in beta right now, is a voice XML driven application that what happens is we custom serve a toll-free number and extension onto the sites so that when a person comes in off of paid search, and eventually we may do this for organic search as well, it serves up a unique extension number, right? And then when the person calls that number, they're intercepted by a please enter the extension number prompt, which doesn't actually change where the call goes. It's just for us to record that extension number. And by matching the timestamp that's on that and the fact that the switch notified us that this extension came in, we can figure out what keywords and engines drove that behavior. So it allows us to tie back ROI. Some clients have actually asked us to implement what you can do in voice XML, which are whisper tones as well, into when the person hangs up the phone after having spoken to a rep. You can have whisper tones ask the rep, to key in either a sale amount or a lead quality score or something like that. So now not only can you attach a binary yes, no, yes, they called the toll-free number off of this keyword, but you can actually take it to the next level. You can assign a specific ROI back to the keyword engine combinations. So it allows you to get a better understanding of exactly what's driving the behaviors you want. Where that becomes important for some marketers and less important for others is if all your keywords and all your marketing drive the same percentage of phone calls all the time, then you really probably don't need this, right? Maybe except once, just to understand that 30% of the people call, and the rest of them, 70%, interact on the site. So once you understand that ratio, you can just use a fudge factor on your ROI number and just track online behavior. But if you've got the kind of business where you sell faucets and hot tubs, and faucets are $299 and hot tubs are $2,300, I guess that my guess would be hot tubs are the kind of things people call about, right? They don't add the hot tub to the shopping cart, even though you can, whereas faucets are more likely to be added to the shopping cart. So in that case, just applying a standard ratio between, calls to online behavior would be wrong, because you'd have high involvement, high ticket items, which are more likely to result in a phone call, versus lower ticket items, which are lower involvement purchases that are less likely to involve a phone call. So that's, again, a strategic decision. Do you want to pay for the per minute calls that a voice XML-based system are going to require? Do you want to use another tracking methodology, which we've also used, which instead of using voice XML, we have reps instruct people to click on particular icons on the page, which can also close the loop. But there's no perfect way to close that loop, but there are ways that you can get a good directional sense as to what kinds of keyword engine combinations are driving phone behavior. So there are solutions for that. Let's see, was there anything else on this slide? The other thing, I guess, to understand about organic SEO is that people go through buying cycles. So, which success metrics you use will depend on potentially where they are in the buying cycle. So if they're early in the buying cycle, maybe using the shopping cart is not necessarily the right success metric, because people who type in certain keywords may just not be ready to buy. Now, that may or may not mean you want to buy those keywords in a paid environment, or it may or may not mean you want to emphasize keywords like those in your organic SEO. But it's just important to understand that not everybody's always right at that instant where they're going to transact. So, what success metrics should you use? Well, before you had an online marketing strategy, you had a regular marketing strategy. And then that probably became an online marketing strategy, and now you're trying to evolve a search marketing strategy out of it. So figure out how you can close the loop. To your point, Chris, figure out how you can close the loop to understand what's in fact driving the behaviors that correlate with sales. You can use blended success metrics. You can use immediate orders, lagged orders. In some cases, you may be a multi-channel merchant, right? Which means that if somebody comes in on keyword air conditioner and then goes to the store lookup to find out where the closest store is, that's a pretty good behavior. The fact that they didn't want to add a $600 air conditioner to their shopping cart that has a $99 shipping because it's so heavy, that may in fact be the best possible behavior that they could take is going to the store locator page. Phone orders, as you said, can be tracked, and there are ways of sort of closing that loop.
Wouldn't the phone orders though just be tracked back to the engine but not to the keyword itself? I mean, if
well,
you
in
have
our
100 keywords you're paying for, you'd have to have 100 different extensions if you wanted to get to that finite level.
Yeah, and that's what in our case that's what we do, and because we can timestamp it, it's a combination. The 4-digit extensions actually repeat for clients that have hundreds of thousands of keywords, but because we also have the timestamp and we know exactly, when the click came through on that keyword, the chances of us having 2 clicks within a 3-second time period that both have the same extension is pretty low. But yeah, I mean, I'm just talking about, in our case, how we've worked it out. But there are all sorts of technology solutions that you could either build or lease or whatever with respect to that. The investment you do in organic SEO sort of pays back slowly because you usually do a lot of investment early on. So you may leave this seminar and put a whole lot of energy into organic SEO to fix the problems which we've helped you identify. And then you'll get a payout over time as all the pages of your site, find the relevancy based on where they belong. As I mentioned earlier, the worst possible action the person might take is the back button. So that's why on both organic and paid, it's also about the messaging. It's about the user experience that the person has, and it's important to have the site ready. With organic SEO, you sometimes don't control the page that the people end up at, right? You might have a page that's 4 levels deep in your site, which Yahoo or Google think are actually very relevant for the thing that the person searched on. But if you were going to land somebody on a page based on that search query, you'd have picked a completely different page. But that's not what's going to happen. What's going to happen is the page that the search engine thinks is the most relevant will be the one that's up there. The person will click on it, and then they'll show up at that page. So it takes a while to start thinking about search engine marketing from the perspective like any page on your site might be the first page that a person has, the first experienced page that the person has, right? So that page which you think of as being like 3 layers deep in your site after they already learned who you are and your history and the product categories that you've got, you're thinking, oh, by the time the person gets to this specific page, they already know everything about me. I don't need to even talk about that. I don't need to talk about why we're great or why they should stay or whatever. But the reality is they may drill deep within your site as their first experience with you. So the kinds of navigation you provide them, the kinds of call to action that you have, all will really impact whether those people stay or hit the back button. Yep?
Can you flag certain pages for the search engines to go to first?
Nope. You can eliminate them by putting in the robots.txt, so you can say, don't ever send anybody here. But you can't actually, say, I prefer this one. There's some minor control that you might have around that through internal linking strategies, and we'll talk about that shortly. So there's a little bit of influence that you can exert. We talked about this already earlier, so I won't spend too much time on it, but using the sort of public relations metaphor for organic SEO. Actually, keywords, we were talking a lot about keywords. Go ahead.
Quick question about SEO. In other words, I understand that you should do, most websites should allocate some effort to optimize, and then you really don't have much to do.
Potentially. It's going to depend on the ROI that you get from your optimization efforts. So in some cases where you've got fresh content coming out all the time in your business, it's very newsworthy, you're writing a lot of press releases, there's lots of new things being released by your organization, then you may as well implement sort of best practices about that information with respect to organic SEO. So as you roll out new pages on the site, make sure they're SEO friendly. As you do press releases.
Don't really change that often.
Eventually, you'll reach a point where the only SEO activity that you might want to continue doing is seeking out links from people, from sites that relate to your industry. So.
That may relate later when you talk about a firm. If you work with a firm or with a person internally, in-house, it's something to discuss because some firms keep charging you.
Well, that's the reason.
For years, and they've done the work for 3 months.
Yeah, I mean that's a very good point. It's the reason I'm not primarily in the organic SEO business anymore, is because I saw and continue to see organic SEO as sort of like fixing broken windows,
yes.
right? So you find the broken windows and you fix the broken windows, and once the windows are fixed, they still need cleaning, but usually the cleaning can be done by somebody with a whole different set of skills. It can usually be done in-house.
So later when we touch on this relationship phases, maybe we can talk about what can the firm do for you after that.
Sure, and and in short, in brief, it's primarily linking strategies or content creation. So, linking strategies have to do with that external influences that relate to SEO, and creating new content is a way to address the fact that you do have a stagnant site, right? So, content creation and linking is usually what those SEO firms that charge a retainer, if they're not doing those two things, then it's a total waste of money. But if they're doing those two things, just like keeping a PR firm on retainer even when you have no news, you have to sort of decide, well, do I really need the PR firm hired if I don't have anything newsworthy this month? So it's a case-by-case thing. Let's see. We'll do keywords and a couple of extra slides, and we'll take lunch. So keywords are sort of the foundation of SEO and SEM. The keyword, as we talked about earlier, describes what it is that the person's looking for that you want to be found for. So it's also what your site is already about. Each page should have certain keywords that you could look at any page on your site and sort of understand what keywords would be relevant to that particular page. Think about all the products and services that you offer. Think about all the acronyms and all the slang that's in your industry that perhaps are used by the prospects that you'd really love to tackle. It's also how a customer or prospect explains the problem that they have, right? If you think about sort of some keyword confusion can sometimes occur between internal teams and what they think are important keywords and what the external people are actually searching on that would be great customers. So the banking industry always thinks about their business as lending, right? But you guys don't think about needing money as lending. You think about it as borrowing or a loan, right? So they may think the word lending is actually really important, but it's not important at all, really, because that's not how the people search for what it is that they need. So understanding, always being able to place yourself in the mindset of the searcher and thinking about the keywords that they're going to want to look for is very useful from the perspective of sort of building out your keyword foundation.